we want to really focus in on the strong properties, the properties we believe have the potential for the next discovery. So in the near future, we might reduce a little bit. We'll see what happens. But as you mentioned, be on the lookout for geophysics projects. We plan on drilling some of these projects in the coming years. And so hopefully we have a pretty steady workflow, coming into the new year. And yeah, we'll see what happens.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Triangle Investor Interviews. I'm your host, Lucian Valkovic, and before I announce my guest, just a quick reminder of a disclaimer. This interview and all my interviews are not a recommendation to buy or sell any shares, products, or services. Always do your due diligence and consult with your financial advisor. And my guest today is Erik Sehn, a newly appointed VP of Exploration for F4 Uranium. Erik, congrats on the new role, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lucia. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Since, just like I said, it's a new role, let's discuss more about you to my audience. Can you start by telling us about your educational background and how did you actually first got involved in uranium exploration?
So I grew up in Calgary, Alberta. Went to the University of Calgary to study geology. Did my degree there, and then got on actually first with fission uranium as a geologist. Did a little bit of logging there. Worked on the PLS project, the triple R, stuff like that. And then later in around 2021, after COVID, Sam Hartman and Ray kind of approached me about joining the team at F3. Do a little more project management, take on a bigger role. And so spent a couple years, doing stuff with F3. We, through the whole JR discovery, tetrazone discovery, that just happened recently this year. And then with F4 spin out, they were kind enough to give me the opportunity to take a shot at being VP for F4, which I gladly accepted. And so then here we are.
That's a great story. You have impressive track record, just like you said, with major discoveries in the Athabasca, the JI zone at Waterbury, the triple R deposit at Peterson Lake South, and the JR and Tetra for F3 uranium. And my question to you is, what were some of the key challenges and breakthroughs in those projects that shaped your approach to exploration?
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, one of the big strengths of F4 is the team here. Like you mentioned, multiple discoveries along the way, especially, two of the discoveries in the last 3 years. In terms of challenges, it's always really hard to find a deposit. I don't know if a lot of people outside of the space understand, you can't just stumble on these things. It takes big teams, a lot of work. Drilling in Saskatchewan is very expensive. It takes a lot of planning and, foresight to be able to efficiently execute drill programs and geophysics and all that. So, every place you go is a different challenge for, drilling conditions and budget and whatever else you might have. It varies where you are in the Athabasca Basin, how deep you are. At JR and Tetra, they were both very different. JR was, a lot of drilling troubles at the start. We kind of got lucky tagging into it pretty early. The first discovery hole was a major hit. So then it was a matter of how can we drill this off effectively. We had a lot of overburden sandstone, stuff like that. And then tetrazone was, a different monster, about hard to, not super strong geophysics, and took us a while to kind of get honed in on it. But all that experience is kind of, making discoveries is always a new learning experience. So all of those discoveries kind of bring you further and further, and hopefully we can bring that to F4 and have some success here.
Definitely. Let's touch on the F4 project overview. For those unfamiliar, could you give us a high-level overview of F4 Uranium's portfolio? I understand the company holds 17 projects across the eastern and western Athabasca Basin, totaling more than 165 or 60 acres. And many of them are near the major deposits like Triple R, Arrow, Hurricane deposit. Which one? Let's start with the question: which of those of this portfolio of these 17 projects, which one are you most excited about right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say right now there's a lot of excitement around the Todd project. The Todd project's had almost no work done to it, very, very little. But like you mentioned, it's in kind of an area where there's been a lot of success with, it's not very far from PLS and Triple R. It's actually just the east, kind of a long trend of, the Patterson Lake corridor, which obviously hosts Arrow and PLS. Um, and then not only that, but it's only about 4 kilometers to the south of the new Tetra Zone discovery. So we're pretty excited about that one. It's in a very good area. It's in a up and coming district that there seems to be a lot going on over there. Nexgen doing their thing, and we're excited to Todd is at almost nothing. There's no drill holes on it. There's very little geophysics, so Todd is a big one that we're planning to definitely focus on going forward.
Okay, let's focus on the Wales Lake project, where F4 recently completed its first drilling program in 2025. You intersected multiple graphitic structures and expanded a conductive corridor by, I believe, 2 kilometers or something
Hmm.
like that, and that is near Nexgen Arrow deposit. What are the latest geochemical results and VTM survey data tell us about the potential of the basement-hosted uranium mineralization there?
For sure. Yeah, so we completed 2 holes over there. One of them was on a new conductor, and one, like you mentioned, was kind of along strike of a previous hole. That we were able to intersect the conductor again and extend that corridor. Um, we haven't got any geochemical results back yet, so we're still waiting on those. Obviously, when those come available, we'll share them with everyone. But yeah, this was kind of like a very early stage, kind of testing it out a little bit. A big part for us will be developing more targets at Wales. There's multiple conductors across the property. We just flew, as you mentioned, a new VTEM survey to kind of infill there was a large part of the property that hadn't had VTEM flown in it. So we completed that, flew the VTEM, I identified a couple new conductors, which we put out in our news release, a couple weeks back. And so now the next steps will be, kind of assess all this data. When we get geochem back, we'll assess the drill holes a little more, and then obviously look at this new VTEM and, see if there's any good targets to the next step would very likely be do some more focused ground geophysics along some of these airborne conductors and really hone in, you know, good targets. For us, again, drilling's really expensive. We want to make sure we're in on good targets before we, are doing big drill programs and stuff like that. So yeah, I'd say the next step, assess all the data we've done, all the work we did this year, kind of take a look at it, and then for next year hopefully plan whether it's ground geophysics or drilling or anything of that, whatever can help us progress to getting a better target for further exploration.
Got it. The project that actually maybe is my favorite in your company, that is Murphy Lake.
Mm.
Why? I know it's a big rush over there with Hurricane deposit. There is ISO, COSA,
Yeah.
some other companies, and you have an asset over there. It's actually you have options, I believe, for 70% interest over there. So, what is the current status of exploration on this project, including any geophysical surveys or drilling plans underway, maybe?
Yep. Yeah. So at the Murphy Lake project, we have a joint venture agreement that we recently announced with Stearman. we're really excited to work with them. And as you mentioned, they can spend up to get up to 70% of the project with an 18 million spend, which is, a big, that's a lot of drilling and
Yeah,
stuff we can do. So yeah, like you said, Murphy is one we're also really excited about. It's one of our top priority projects. Like you mentioned, very close to Hurricane. The new Pierpoint Nova discovery is kind of, just to the south. We got a lot of, good results all around that property. And we had some decent results on that property when we drilled it ourselves back in 2022. Um, so yeah, we're looking forward to working with Stearman, and the next, as you mentioned again, we were hoping to do a little more ground geophysics on, some of the western portion of the property, and some infill on, the where we had the drilling already. Again, develop more targets, see if we can, hone in on something, and with working with Stearman a little bit to, fund some of those projects, we're hopefully going to be in there, sooner rather than later.
sure. I don't have the map in front of me, but I remember that Hurricane lies on the La Roque Trend. Is your
Yes.
project as well on that trend, or is it nearby?
It's just to the southeast of the Laroque Trend. There is some interpretations of the conductors that we're not really sure about, if, there's any offshoots, like anything like that. But on the main Laroque Trend, we're not on the main Laroque Trend. We're just off of it. But we've hit one of our holes hit a pretty good graphitic conductor. So, there's conductors on this property as well. And with all the nearby success, we're hoping that, we have a good trend on our property as well.
Sure. One other interesting project is Cree Bay. That project has shown encouraging previous drill results with elevated uranium values. So, how would you characterize the current status of this project, and what recent data supports its underexplored potential along the snowbird tectonic zone, if that's the right name? I'm not sure.
Yeah. It's right near Orano's and Forum's joint
Yeah.
venture for Island project, and so that kind of trend continues towards Cree Bay. Cree Bay right now, similar thing. Like it's only had two drill holes, similar to a lot of our properties. We have some drill targets, but they're still very new. So Cree Bay is one to look out for doing, some entry level geophysics. Kind of get, yeah, again, like a lot of the property hasn't been covered by up to date geophysics. So that'll be kind of the first thing we look to do is some airborne, and then hone that in with some ground geophysics before going back there. Cree Bay is another one that's, it's quite deep. In 2019, the last time it was drilled there, the unconformity depth was deeper than we expected. Um, which could possibly mean a major structural offset. But that deep sandstone means, expensive drilling again. So again, it's a property where you don't want to waste drill holes. If you're doing deep drill holes, you want to make sure, you have the targets all planned out, and then, part of it is also logistics with, a big chunk of the property being on the lake there. um Planning whether it's going to be a winter program or if you can hit targets off land. So yeah, I'd be on the lookout for, some airborne geophysics, in the near future, and then hopefully, right into ground geophysics, and hopefully sooner than later, our priorities kind of get a lot of these projects to good drill targets and have them drill ready.
Yeah. Let's touch on the Gray Island. That project is located about 50 kilometers west of the Key Lake mine. It is a part of the eastern Athabasca focus. What exploration has been completed to date over there, and how does its geology compare to nearby high-grade systems?
Yeah, so Gray Island, again, one of the properties, very little drilling done. We see some of the very little drill holes. We see some of those, the things, alteration and stuff that you want to see. But super underexplored. It hasn't been drilled in many years. Another one that we plan on doing, first stage airborne, right away, and then kind of zoning it in. Gray Island's a very, very big project. So another thing we want to do is kind of take a look at it and see where, does it need to be that big? Like, where are the areas we like? It's really, really expensive to keep a project that big, the mineral tenure and stuff. So we want to, do these steps with the geophysics and then be able to kind of focus in, get this property to, a size that makes sense for us and that's easier to work on.
Yeah, this makes sense. On the western side, you did mention at the beginning Todd Lake. However,
Yeah.
you have more projects. Clearwater West. I remember that was prior under the option with SKRR Exploration.
Yeah.
And you have another one that is, I believe, Smart Lake.
Yes.
What's the plan over there?
Yeah, so the west side, as I kind of mentioned, Todd is one of our most exciting properties, but we have quite a big portfolio on the west side with Todd, Wales Lake, and Clearwater all very close, and then Smart Lake is further up north. Um, so Smart Lake is pretty small project, kind of very early stage, but where we are really going to focus a lot of our work is going to be those, as you mentioned, Todd and Wales and Clearwater, all very near each other, all just off Highway 955. So, logistics of working them. And then, as you mentioned, the proximity to Triple R and Arrow and, the new Tetra zone, which was discovered in the Clearwater domain. Todd property falls within that. There's new potential there. Since that discovery, there's a lot of targets where, in the past people may not have looked in those areas. But now with this, with new discoveries and, new geophysics, this team has never shied away from trying some more experimental things or, doing a little more geophysics that other people might not think of doing. Um, so we want to, bring that to the whole Western portfolio, whether it's Todd or Wales or Clearwater. And yeah, we've had some good conductors on both Clearwater and Wales. As I mentioned, Todd, we haven't really drilled at all yet. So, all those projects are going to be a highlight for us going forward to really focus and do some work on.
Yeah, not just that. I mean, those projects are in the neighborhood where is Nexgen, and Nexgen will build
That's
a
true.
mine, and Nexgen will build an infrastructure. So, do you believe that you will get advantage over that infrastructure as well in the area which will be built?
Yeah, it obviously will be a very helpful thing for the companies in the area if Nexgen gets, to that point within, and who knows exactly what the timeline is looking like. But as you mentioned, as you get that stuff, it becomes easier to get things in and you have camps set up and you have, potentially runways, everything gets easier to do logistically when you have infrastructure like that. So yeah, if, we'll see what happens with the whole next gen mine plan and everything. And, if they get as they get more and more infrastructure, it's definitely going to be good for those Western projects over there.
Yeah, you are from the industry, you are following the trends over there. Are there any new exploration tools that are coming or that they arrived already that you will be using them in the exploration of your projects, or maybe you are using them already? And I'm
Right.
talking here not just that, I'm talking the AI as well. Are you using the AI?
Yeah. Yeah, so for us, AI hasn't come into a big part yet. I think a big part of it is just, with AI, when it's really successful is when you have a lot of data, those projects where you've drilled many holes and you have all this geophysics and geochem and all this stuff. For us, everything's still pretty low level. A lot of these projects only have a couple drill holes. So it's hard to get any sort of, major trends pulled out yet with stuff like that. But obviously AI is becoming, a huge thing as moving forward. And so as I mentioned, this team has never been ones to shy away from trying new things and stuff like that. So who knows in the future what we may explore using.
Yeah, as a project generator and exploration company, you're actually a mix. How do you plan to balance independent exploration with potential joint ventures?
Yeah, absolutely. You want to have a bit of both. Like it's awesome to have, you can only raise so much money and stuff like that. So the joint ventures are really important to us, and we, it's always good to have more opinions and anything that can bring you towards that, hopefully making a discovery or something like that is always welcome. So we have projects that, we really want to focus on and we want to grow ourselves. And then there's lots of projects that we're happy for people to come in and join in on us. So, we're always open to the possibility of, any new joint ventures, anything like that. So, but we have, a very successful team that is more than capable of taking projects, right from, you know, super early stage exploration all the way to discovery and past that. So we have good experience to, really utilize both in this company.
Definitely. Who are the people behind the company? Who is in the team?
Yeah, so our, the main team, the names that a lot of people know, obviously, Dev is going to be chairman. Ray Ashley is the CEO of the company. Obviously, a lot of success there, and then Sam Hartman, who's the president of F4. As you know, VP of F3. He's also all of those guys have been involved as you mentioned earlier, the four discoveries: J Zone, Triple R, JR Zone, and now Tetra. So a wealth of experience in many different fields, and obviously, a lot of success in the uranium sector. So it's a really strong team. And then everyone else, there's a lot of other names that people might not know, but we have a really strong technical team. And, from top to bottom, this team has had a good record of success. So hopefully that continues on with F4.
Yeah, final question, Eric. What are the key milestones you plan to achieve, and how will the news flow looking going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, our goals are really, as I mentioned, um, we want to look at all of our property, like we talked about earlier. We have 17 properties over, 160,000 hectares of land that, it's very expensive to maintain, and we want to focus in and kind of assess all of our properties for, you don't want to be keeping properties and paying deficiencies or doing work on them that you're not really sure about. So, you know, short-term plan is, we've been doing this for a while, is just assess everything, see where it makes sense to, like you said, we're always on the look for new projects, but if there's a project that people aren't that excited about or we're not that excited about, potentially reducing a little bit so we can really focus on the highlights like you mentioned, Murphy Lake, Todd, Clearwater, the western properties, Cree Bay and Lazy Edwards among the other ones. We want to really focus in on the strong properties, the properties we believe have the potential for the next discovery. So in the near future, we might reduce a little bit. We'll see what happens. But, as you mentioned, be on the lookout for geophysics projects. We plan on drilling some of these projects in the coming years. And so hopefully we have a pretty steady workflow, coming into the new year. And yeah, we'll see what happens.
Eric, I wish you luck with all 17 projects. That was Erik Sehn, VP of Exploration for F4 Uranium. Thank you very much for joining me today, and we will talk soon again. I hope so.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.